Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves no matter where they are at. A place where you can listen, learn, and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier, and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Transformation Project. So you would know, if you've been following us for some amount of time, that the Transformation Project is not just a podcast, but also a community. And behind that community, we also each own our own business within the Juice Plus business. And recently we had a Juice Plus conference that we went to in Canberra. It was freaking freezing, but we got through it. And while we were there, I heard our guest speak. Now, if you've heard us talk about Juice Plus before, you may have heard us say that they're the company with the heart for a number of reasons, but one of them is because they have an incredible charity called Nutrition Plus. And our guest today was talking about Nutrition Plus and the work that they do in the community and just the way that she connected, and especially what she does and the incredible woman she is. I thought that it'd be so wonderful to have her on. So our guest today is Elsie Stuart. She's a proud Aboriginal woman from the Biripi Nation, which is located in New South Wales, north of Taree. She was a former Indigenous Liaison Officer for the Australian government. She was also a support officer for Indigenous people affected by natural disasters. She has a Bachelor of Design from the White House School of Design, where she majored in marketing. And during her professional career, she's worked as editorial, food and prop stylist for high-end clients such as Donna Hay, Delicious and MINDFOOD. And then, lucky for us, in 2018, Elsie started working as part of the sales and marketing team for the Juice Plus Company Australia and was asked to join Nutrition Plus as a project manager. Within 3 months, she was appointed as a member of the board of directors. And I'm pretty sure once you've listened to her, you will understand why. So welcome to our podcast, Elsie.
Thank you. That was so long.
It was so long. You've done a bit, girl.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yeah, super, super exciting. We love Juice Plus on this podcast, but I really, really connect with Nutrition Plus and actually did one of the Nutrition Plus camps that we went to and kind of learned more around Indigenous culture here in Australia, which was really important for me coming in as a foreigner from South Africa. Like, I didn't get it and didn't fully understand, and it just blew my mind. That entire weekend blew my mind, and what you guys do like really inspires me. So I really thought that it was important for more people to know about you, Elsie, because you inspire me, the work that you do out in the community and also the company itself. So tell us a little bit more about your background and how you got into what you're doing currently with Nutrition Plus.
Sure. Just on that, I would just like to say all of the people within the Juice Plus community like yourself are actually super lucky to be able to connect with people like David and the other, the Wokageti men that we've got there. And it's really wonderful, especially things like the conference we went to. I see so many faces from camps over the years. And you can always pick the people at conference that have done something cultural with us, whether it's a camp or NMD school or anything like that, because you do have that beautiful connection, with us and our culture already. But my journey to Nutrition Plus is actually a bit of a funny and weird one. I joined Juice Plus as part of their accounting team, and I've never been an accountant. I don't know how I swung that. But very quickly realised I shouldn't have been in that role, and that's when they put me into the sales and marketing role, which I really enjoyed. But again, I grew up in a Steiner school. I've had a very cultural Steiner education, and I then moved into styling and the arts and all of that sort of thing. So going into a very structured office life for me was a little bit, it was a little bit nuts, but I really liked the culture and the people that I worked with. And one day David walked into work, and I remember he just pointed at me and said, "You're Aboriginal, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." And he was like, "All right, one day next week, I need you to come and do something with me." And I was like, "Okay, sure." And so he told me to meet him at a breakfast club, a local breakfast club, and I needed to be there at 8:30 in the morning to go and help him. And I thought, that's cool. No worries. I'd love to do that. And it's kind of that morning sort of changed my life forever. I knew what Nutrition Plus did and I knew sort of the idea around it, but I guess that morning just sort of really struck me. And that the week before that, my nephew and niece, Francesca and Hamish, had both just started school. And so the whole family was in a bit of a spin out because it was emotional and all of that sort of thing. Anyway, so it was a Friday morning and we were doing the Nutrition Plus Breakfast Club. I didn't realize I'd, straight away was buttering bread and getting complete shakes ready and doing all of these things. And there was this young boy and his twin brother, and I think they must have been 5 or 6, and so one of the brothers came up and got both of their breakfast and then scurried off and gave the shake and the bread to his other brother, and then sort of 20 minutes later he came back and got some more and put it in his bag. And I was thinking, God, this kid's getting everyone's breakfast. I couldn't really, I wasn't really in the mindset of what was going on. And I guess the heartbreak and a lot of the things I saw at that one breakfast club sort of all tumbled in the end, because I went over to David and said, that boy has taken 8 slices of bread, like this, we've got to I was trying to micromanage everything. Anyway, I remember one of the teachers I took aside and she said to me, oh no, so the twin that was doing everything, the other twin had autism and couldn't speak. And the school weren't actually sure what was going on and if they were living with parents or if they were being cared for. So every Friday, this boy would take extra food for him and his brother in case they didn't get fed until the Monday. And I remember thinking I was so heartbroken that I had been cranky with this boy for being greedy and taking more than, Anyway, we finished packing up and said to David, I'll see you back in the office or whatever. And he caught me crying in my car. And he was just like, are you okay? And I think it was, I just had my niece and nephew start school that week. And also I've been living in a world where I didn't think that this stuff happened. And I remember I got back to the office that day and I said to David, that's it. I'm in, like whatever we can do, whatever I can do for Nutrition Plus, I'm in. And I think that was 4.5 years ago or something. And we've got an extra 40 projects since then. And it kind of just cascaded for me since then. I changed my mindset out of this is what I'm going to do with my life to this is actually what I'm put here to do, and yeah, that's the long story of how I started with Nutrition Plus.
I love it. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm probably going to cry a few times on this podcast, just so everyone is like well aware. We can get that out of the way with. Could you tell everybody what exactly Nutrition Plus does? Like, so we know it's a charity.
Yeah.
Who does it help? What does it do? Where does it get its funding? Like a little bit of everything just around Nutrition Plus.
Sure. So we're a not-for-profit organisation. We're based in Newcastle, and we're the chosen charity of choice for Juice Plus. So a certain amount of the profits from all sales of Juice Plus come to us. But we also do have, partners and other companies that will give us random donations to keep us on our feet. But we have 3 separate grants. So there's the 10 million meals, which is about getting serves of Juice Plus out into the community. We have a small grants program, which is up to $10,000 for other not-for-profit organisations that, there might be a homeless shelter or, a women's shelter, anything like that needs propping up. So we do offer that in our grants application as well. And obviously school breakfast programs. So we have Juice Plus products, but we can also offer other funding for other things that they would need for their breakfast program. And so we are an Indigenous based charity, but that's not to say that all of, everyone that gets help from us is Indigenous. That became our main focus. And I guess since then, we make up 3% of Australia's population. So we can't just be like, we're going to feed you or help you. And, but that is our main focus.
I love it. I think the story you just told hits a heartstring for me so much because I'm from Canada, in case you couldn't tell. Relatively, well, I'm more new to Australia, but I don't really know a lot about Australian culture, still learning, working towards getting my citizenship. So this is all like new to me and I didn't really know anything about Nutrition Plus when I first started. But I think what grabs me so much with, like I said, the story that you just told was because we had a school program very similar. Oh, I'm going to go.
You can cry. You're allowed to.
Let it go, babe.
In high school, I'm not going to be able to go into it, but basically very similar. There were some people that would always Yeah, and anyway, it just broke my heart, and I ended up volunteering with them. Yeah, there's no point to my crying story. I love it. I love it. I love it. And what I think I love the most is I don't even realize that I'm helping this program by having a business with these guys.
That's something too. And I try to, whenever I'm at a conference or I'm doing a call with Juice Plus, there's so many people that go, oh, so like, how do you do it and what do you do? It's you guys that do it. You know, like I'm the person that's able to, you know, I project manage it, or we've got a board member that sort of make decisions around it, but it's you guys that are giving us the funds to do it, you know. So it kind of is everyone's story. It's so funny, like at conference when I go and tell a story and everyone comes and goes, that's so amazing, that's so amazing. And I think it is amazing. I forget because we do it so much, but we're not the ones that fuel it, you know, like, yeah, it's crazy. And I feel so much gratitude towards all of you because I love doing what I do and I think it is amazing. And I see the results with my own eyes. But yeah, it's you guys that do it.
Yeah, I think so many of
someone
us
like
that.
us that wants to get a bit more involved, is there things all around that we can help with?
Yeah, so you can do any kind of funding that you want to. We've got people, it's really funny. I'll meet someone somewhere and tell them our story and they'll set up like a monthly PayPal deposit and I just forget. Or, you know, like we've had people that have garage sales or lemonade things or, you know, like pie runs with their schools, any kind of thing. We have people that do marathons and like any way that you can fundraise or get funds to us is, you know, we appreciate it. We can always do with more funds.
Yeah, there's never ever a lack, I think, of people and children, especially in this country, that need more. So for you guys who don't know what Juice Plus is a company that offers plant-based nutrition. And so mainly in Australia and in New Zealand, that's in the form of shakes, and we have capsules, and then we have kids gummies. And essentially what they are is fruit, veggies, and they've been dehydrated gently and then put into the gummy or, you know, the shakes or whatever. So it's just in a nutshell, I'm not going to go into it, but plant-based nutrition. So when Elsie was saying that they do the complete shakes, right? So that's beautiful plant-based nutrition for these children who are not getting that nutrition anywhere else, that they're getting to have through these breakfast clubs. And we've seen some really amazing results as far as what getting that nutrition into their body is doing for them. And so, Elsie, I would love if you have kind of any stories around that that have kind of impacted you in changes that you've seen in the times that you've been working with these schools, helping them with that.
I do. I've got many, but a favorite of mine would probably be, I used to go to a school every Friday and do their breakfast program. With COVID and things, it's a lot harder at the moment, but I kind of had a bit of a buddy system where they gave us a breakfast room and I'd turn up at 8 o'clock and have shakes and have all of these things ready for them. And I remember when I first started it, everyone was sort of looking at me like I was a bit of an idiot and, you know, like, what's that teacher doing? You know, not that I'm a teacher, but I remember about 3 months into these Fridays when I was trying to trick them to come and hang out with me, we decided that we would take a small group of them on a camp with us over 2 days. And Jeremy and David and Uncle Paul and I took them. And it was the most life-changing experience for, probably me, and I think these children as well. We just became like this little family. And I think maybe the week after or the next Friday that I turned up, I had maybe 60 students waiting for breakfast. You know, I had 3 the time before and I was thinking, my God, I don't know how I'm going to do this. But the students, there were 5 students in particular that I can think of that came on this camp, and they were so naughty. Like, they were naughty as, oh my God. And so these 5 beautiful students that had been on this camp with us had organised with other students, and most of them walked to school, they lived quite close, that they would get to school 15 minutes before me to prepare a dance that they could dance for me at breakfast. And the dances went for like 2 years. And these, I'm telling you, these kids wouldn't go to school. Their attendance would be at 30% or whatever. And now they're some of the most amazing kids I've ever met in my life. And I'm not saying that, a couple of shakes in the morning has changed them, but the routine or the someone constantly being there for them, or, that sort of thing is just really, and if you think that's 5 kids, sure, that's not a massive amount of kids, but those 5 kids are going to live on to be better people, I think, and whatever love or whatever hope that we've given and shown them, they can show to somebody else. And yeah, that's just one.
I think that's interesting because you mentioned Uncle Paul Gordon, and so he was actually at the camp that I went to.
Yeah,
and he has recently released a book in conjunction with another guy, and it's called The Dreaming Path. Am I right? Yes, The Dreaming Path. I'm wanting to make sure I'm correct. I have the book. It's freaking amazing. Go and get it. But he had the Wakagetty guys there with them. And so most of those guys also come from a pretty difficult upbringing, difficult teenagers, right? And then through kind of connecting back with their culture, have then been able to flip their lives around and then impact so many more, which is really what it's about.
Well, they're all really lovely cultural men, I guess. They're again, they're an extension of my family, and I guess they've all got their different stories. But when you have somebody like Uncle Paul in your life, I don't think you can sort of fall off the wagon, or he'll put you back into place. We're all very lucky to have somebody as magic as him guiding us. But yeah, you can definitely say he's changed a lot of lives. And that book, if you haven't read it, it's again one of the most amazing pieces of literature I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's essentially applying Aboriginal philosophy to our modern day way of life, which for a lot of people might be like, I don't get that. That doesn't make sense. It totally does. And it has, just from being with him at that camp, completely changed the way we live our lives and the way we speak to our children, and everything. It was really, really impactful. We literally, and actually, as it happened, we went to that camp 1 week before COVID, locked down everything. So 1 week later, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It was huge. And so I certainly hope that there'll be more of those, because we would love to kind of take our family to learn more about that. Because I really think that Aboriginal philosophy is such a precious gift, and can be such a blessing to those of us who would be prepared to look at that and take that on and take it seriously. From where,
if you're willing to accept it, and if you're willing to open up and accept what's put in front of you, that's where the magic happens. You can't force feed somebody, and you can't also Google it and learn how to be that way. So I think you and I are both very lucky to have been in Uncle Paul's presence, and there will be more chances for that in the future. We've got a little something in the works.
Okay, good.
I'll be there.
Good, because ever since Yvette's got back from that one, I've been like, I want to go on the next one. I want to go on the next one. Like, Yvette, keep me in the loop. And
it was pretty awesome.
Yeah. Okay. Good. I want to be there. What would you say are the main challenges you see in Indigenous communities around Australia?
Oh, that is a really, really tough one. Challenges, I guess, with health and well-being, that's a massive one. It should be everyone's problem, I think. Alcoholism, things like diabetes, eyesight, just the general poverty line for First Nations people. As I said before, we make up 3%. Our incarceration rate is ridiculous. My personal thought as well, with a lot of Aboriginal communities, I think that a big problem that we have is our police force and the way areas, you'll have somewhere like Wilcannia or somewhere even further out west where we've got an extremely high crime rate, and the police force will place 3 21-year-olds that have grown up in Potts Point, Sydney. They'll pop them out there and think that that's going to try and, sort out the way the world's going to work. I think a lot of problems we have come from that kind of issue. I think that closing the gap is also another issue that we have. I know a lot of communities that we go into. We did the variety bash. Well, we've done it for 4 years now, and we took 2 of the Juice Plus, Nutrition Plus cars out to one of our schools there. And Fee Taylor, a lot of you would know Fee Taylor, and she's a beautiful Juice Plus partner and has been a long time supporter of that. And I remember this school that we went out to drop product off and to show them the cars. Fee at first didn't even want to go in. She was so overwhelmed and couldn't believe how differently people were living in one of these areas than where she's from. And I think David and I were a bit like, what are you doing? You know, come in type thing. And she was genuinely shocked that there were still places in Australia that were, you know, living the way that they were. And I'm not going to say that they don't live the right way, but it was definitely a culture shock for her. So I think probably more just understanding, everyone needs to understand the way people are living in our own country. Just because you're not looking at it or seeing it doesn't mean that people don't need help. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think that we've gotten far enough as a culture and as a country that it's kind of time for white Australia to educate themselves. You know, it's all well and good for people to get me and David or whoever to sit up on stage and tell you about what's going on. But like, yeah, I think it's getting to a point now where things like reading Uncle Paul's book or watching more of NITV, that kind of thing, and really educating yourselves on what's going on with our country's First Nations people.
Yeah, well, it's exactly what you said, right? We don't see it. So I'm not saying this is an excuse, but it's easy for people then to just shut it out.
Yeah.
But like you said, it's 3% of our population. Like, and there's so much culture and history, and we can learn so much. And we're meant to be a community and a country, and there needs to be more inclusivity around that.
Totally. And you look at someone like Yvette, we've had so many wonderful people that come and spend a few days with us, and then afterwards they're like, oh my God, like, tell us more. And, you know, people get so hungry for the culture and the stories, and like, they're all out there. We're all out there. I think that's why I really appreciate you guys coming, you know, asking me to speak, because like, I think my culture and I think what we do is really cool. I'm in the 3%, you know, and I just think as people living on First Nations land here, I think if I wasn't a First Nations person, I'd be so excited to learn more. Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's kind of what we do, right? That's why we're here, trying to, you know,
close that gap.
Yeah. Close the gap.
And also, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Aboriginal people here in Australia are of the oldest people in the world.
The oldest living culture in the world. The oldest.
World. So surely there's some stuff to learn there.
There's so much stuff to learn. And I think we're at a turning point now, I think, for so long. And even like when I was younger, I was called awful names on the school bus. And, you know, my father was called all of these really terrible things. And I used to think back then, how, like, we're supposed to be special. Aren't we special? Why are people being so mean? And now it's, you know, I'm 34 years old now, and it's only now that people are being like, oh, you're Aboriginal. That's cool. That's kind of cool. So in some ways, I'm sad for people like my father that didn't get to be the cool person, but I'm also really hopeful moving forward, because I think it's something to be really special. I think I'm really proud of it. And yeah.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think we're incredibly lucky to have the opportunity to be able to learn more about it, that the culture is still here. Thank goodness that there are people trying to reignite that, because especially in what you were saying, that there is a lot of sort of behavioral issues in children or crime and that sort of stuff. And my understanding is that the more that those people that are in that kind of mindset, that are doing those sort of things, are brought back to their true culture, right? Because Aboriginal sort of philosophy and law is not about any of that. All the stories.
We didn't have a war ever.
Right.
There was never a war.
Tribes did not fight. I didn't know this, people, but there has never actually been in the history of ever in Australia any records of any Aboriginal tribes fighting with each other. Amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think too, the cycle of generational trauma is sort of where we're sitting at the moment, right? So you've got any kind of trauma that meets another kind of trauma, and you're looking for an explosion. And I think when you look at something like people living on stolen land, people living on your land, and you've got all of these things going on, all of these traumas that you're living through that have been handed down from generation to generation, I think people don't realize, they'll see something bad happening and they'll go, they're this kind of person. They're not looking at someone and going, oh, holy smokes, them and their grandma and their mother and their grandma's mother and all of these things have all battled through all of the same sorts of things, and we expect them to be a certain way. Like, I think we're kind of at a point now where I would hope that there's enough understanding and enough knowledge around things like generational trauma that people would understand that we kind of need to work together or figure out a way that we can work together to try and break the cycle moving forward, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I think it's an Australian problem. I'm using air quotes. It's an Australian thing that we have to work on, right? It's not your problem, my problem, someone else's problem. And I think what we, as Jess was saying, and as you were saying too, is that we don't realize that so much of this and these issues are happening like in our communities. So I know that even, within my sort of area, like, within 20 minutes of my house, there's people who don't have enough to eat. There's people who are, there's children who are going to school hungry, like all that sort of thing. I don't see that. My children don't experience that. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And that doesn't mean that. And I think for me, what it does mean is that because I have the capacity to help, it's my obligation. It's my obligation to help. It's not even like, like the nice to do. I feel like for us that can help, it's our obligation. I see helping as a form of self-care as well for myself. And I think, back to before I was doing this job, and I'd go partying and I'd go on holidays and do all these wonderful things, which is so awesome. But these days I sort of get my kicks from, if we can send a school on a camp, or, if we can do a wonderful thing for a group of children and then we get the feedback that it's super, that's my form of self-care now. And I think that helping people feels good, and if you're lucky enough to have everything and you've got it all in check, and, let's try and help other people to be there, if you get what I mean. And I think that's what I find really wonderful about your little community and the people that I speak through conferences and things, that everyone does want to help. And if anyone wants to help, let's work together. Let's do it.
Cool. I'm ready.
Now tell me, Elsie, throughout your time that you've been working with Nutrition Plus and Juice Plus, can you think of like any particular, like one thing that's happened that's really impacted you to a point that like it's completely changed your mindset or completely changed the way you live your life?
So one of probably the most pivotal moments in my career at Nutrition Plus has been sort of only recent. About 2 years ago, one of my good friends, Raphael, who works in Byron Bay, and he looks after kids sort of that are too old to go back to school but too young to start TAFE or uni and that sort of thing. And a few years ago, he came to us and said that he wanted to put in a vegetable garden at the school that he was working in and sort of explain what they were doing and all of that sort of thing. And I said, look, just put an application in, and when we go with the board, we'll sort of see where we go with it. Anyway, they put an application in. It was amazing, and it was sort of designed to get more elders and family members coming in, and it was approved, and the money was sort of on its way. And not long after that, Raphael contacted me to tell me that one of the boys that was doing the garden with him and sort of was most involved had actually committed suicide. He was only 16 years old, and he had had a lot of family members and things, which that kind of was super heartbreaking for us. And we sort of did anything that we could to try and help them. And they decided to use the funds that we were able to give them to make a memorial garden for him. And the garden was used by elders, family members. It became sort of a grief spot, which was beautiful for us that we could help, but it also, I guess, gave Raf and the other students a place to be. And if they're in the garden doing nice things or they're keeping together, then they're less likely to be off doing bad things, and that's the way they sort of saw it. Anyways, at the beginning of the year, Lismore obviously had those terrible floods, and their garden and all of the spaces that they would usually use to sort of go and mourn, and not just the students, but his family, was tragically taken away, which is just devastating for them. And it's more than just the garden. And so again, when I heard of the floods, I contacted Raf to see if there was anything else that we would be able to do. And he was saying he was hoping to take this group of kids away with them. And I think he was just going to put them in a bus and take them somewhere, Anyway, I sat with the board and we sort of had a look at the funds and a few other people that we might be able to see if they were interested to put money together. And Raf was able to take them to Ayers Rock, which was just the most phenomenal thing. If you have a look on our Instagram and Facebook, you'll see the photos because it's just the most beautiful thing in the world. But there were 2 students in particular that went, and they'd both lost a sibling, and I don't know if turmoil's the word, but they just didn't have a zest for life anymore. I think when you experience something like a suicide and then, your whole town goes underwater and everything that you've had is just not there anymore. And I don't even know the living situations that they had at the time, but they sat with an elder at the bottom of the rock for hours and hours and hours and listened and, talked about their grief and worked through it all together. And those 2 students are just completely changed from then on. And I guess this is long-winded and I'm sorry, but I guess that my point in this is that that's a relationship that we started with this school 3 years ago. We didn't even know there was a death or a flood or anything else. It was just they were reaching out because they wanted a vegetable garden. My God. And, 3 years later, we're able to help all of these people. Like the grief process, that it's not only those 2 boys. I would assume everyone else and Raf, the other teachers, were able to go away on something that we've created and work through their trauma and their grief together. So, yeah, I guess that would be my pivotal change.
I don't even know what to say.
That's amazing. I'm looking at Jess's face. I'm like, she's going to go in.
I'm like, keep it together. When you were like, sorry, this is a long-winded. I was like, it's all right. This is helping me compose myself. Wow. Elsie, thank you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for your time. Thank you for, I think, mostly like inspiring me, to be totally honest. If other people want to get involved, how do they get a hold of you? How can they, write a grant application, or how can they donate or do anything?
So our website, but the best place probably to contact us is through Facebook and Nutrition Plus. We're also on Instagram. Our Instagram bio has a donate link if you'd like to donate that way, or you can just get in touch with me on Facebook. I'm Elsie JP, or email me, elsie.stuart@juiceplus.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on for us today. Everybody who's listening, please don't stress. We will make sure that we have all the links. Anything that we've spoken about today, we will have those links. We'll have the website links up in our show notes so that you're able to contact Elsie or contact Nutrition Plus. If you'd like to learn more about any of that, please also feel free to comment under our podcast. We're happy to get in contact with you and make sure that you get in touch with the right person. And if you're a school or an organization that is looking for help, then that would be the perfect place for you to be able to connect with them, because these guys do some absolutely incredible work. As you've heard, we are absolutely privileged to have a small part in that. So Elsie, thank you so much for coming on with us today. We appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. And I've had a wonderful time. And I can't wait to see you both next year.
Yes, me too. Hit that dance floor again, baby.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Something that you may not know about Elsie is that Elsie can do the splits, man. Elsie can pull out.
I thought this would come up.
Elsie can do the splits like nobody's business. She is an absolute beast on the dance floor. And I'm usually the first one on the dance floor and the last one off. I was wearing 6-inch platforms at our last conference gala ball. And I'm also one of those girls who will not take my shoes off. And since my sneakers, which I normally take, look exactly like my kids' sneakers, one of my kids took them off the bed and I had no sneakers. So I danced the whole night in 6-inch platforms, and it was the best. We had an amazing time, and it's always fun dancing with Elsie and the Wakagetty guys and getting really into it and having a great party. So I can't wait to do that again.
Me too. I'll bring sneakers next time too to dance with.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to, for sure. Well, thanks so much for joining us, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Transformation Project. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having an absolutely incredible day. See you next time. Thank you for listening in to this episode of the Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast, we're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.